in-laws. Sometimes it's just some in-laws. Because she's complaining. I'm like, what the fuck is she talking about? Oprah, they're so racist. They wanted to know how brown the baby was going to be. They're so racist. They wanted to know how brown the baby's going to be. I'm like, that's not racist. Because even black people want to know how brown the baby going to be. I know what she going through. I know what Meghan Markle's going through. I know her dilemma. Black girl trying to be accepted by her white in-laws. Oh, it's hard. Black girl trying to be accepted by her white in-laws. It's so hard. It's very hard. But it ain't as hard as a white girl trying to be accepted by her black in-laws. Now that is really hard.
So now y'all seen what Chris Rock had to say. So I am going to open it up with a set of questions that you guys can respond to. So the very first 2 or 3 that I want everybody marinating on is, do you think that if you're in an interracial relationship, that you can be truly accepted by the parents and the family? And with that said, do you think that the most of the problems, or a good portion of the problems that interracial people have, come from outside of them because people are judging them because they have crossed the cultural or racial line? So think about that, everybody, for 30 seconds. You know, we get the Jeopardy music. Bum, 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 bum. All right. And I want to see some hands come up. If not, I'm going to pick on you. Cool. Come on, Sean. Talk to us.
Okay. I think it's more well, you said the magic word a few seconds ago. I think it's more about culture than racial. There's I mean, I can think of a platonic friend I met that was about 20 years ago, and I was living in Michigan at the time, and the lady I met up with, her family was New York Italian, and they just did not take to me for anything. But my last girlfriend I had right about that same time, actually, before I got married, she was half black, and that was not really an issue. I mean, we broke up for unrelated issues, but other than that, it was you know, when I think of those 2 things, it was definitely a cultural thing more than, you know, not racial.
Okay, go ahead, Chip.
First off, good evening, everybody. I think really it comes down to motivation. It's going to be some internal pressure because we're all a collection of the environment that we've grown up in. And so that you'll know when, say, you go into a room and, you know, people look at you or something like that. And if you're in the South, but I think if you're solid and, you know, being there for the right reasons, and, you know, it really doesn't, you're not going to be shook. So yeah, it can be external pressure, but it can be also internal pressure. If you like seeking other people's approval, and you're needing their head nod or their sign off, then yeah, you're going to be struggling. You're going to be under a lot of pressure. And that's, I mean, I think any relationship is open to just stressors, but that's going to be a big one, because if you care what people think to the point that it affects you. So.
Good, love it, appreciate it. Come on, Kristen.
Hey, everyone. So I think it's a little of both. I have a personal experience because my family, we do have interracial relationships. My brother in particular is married to a white woman. my family, because of who we are, we accepted her from jump. We accepted the kids. Her family, on the other hand, her own grandmother would not come to the wedding. Her own grandmother died not seeing her kids, my niece and nephew, because they were biracial. Her own mother right now, they're not speaking because of just some issues that are going on right now. So I think when you're brought up a certain way, you're going to accept people no matter how they look. But when you're stuck in the 1920s, 1950s, it doesn't matter how many years go by, you're going to be stuck in that mindset. So my sister-in-law, of course, we've accepted her and we're her new family. It has affected her in the sense of it has made her, of course, super emotional to why she would love her family to all of her feelings to accept my brother, but they just don't. But it's never deterred her on, of course, loving him and still being with him, and of course, loving her children as being biracial. So it's been a challenge for my family in the sense that we, sometimes we're ready to fight some of her family, but we can't do that. But because for you not to accept children because they're biracial, and for you to go to the grave dying because your own great grandchildren are Black and white, it's very disheartening and very sad. Even some of his friends are in interracial relationships and they've had issues with, it's always been the woman's side. It's never been like their side, of course, because we're accepting of anybody, no matter how they look or what race they are. But I know in just my experience, it's always been the woman's side. It's never been our side as accepting them. So that's my experience personally.
No, that's a good point. And I'm gonna go ahead and lower your hand and move to Ebony. But as Ebony is about to come on, I think you make a point. And so, because it's the woman's side, do you think that is that protection? And this is just for everybody to think about, that people have when it comes to women. Because people try to protect their women. That's the whole thing, for men to be protectors, providers, and leaders. So they're trying to protect their women. So do you think that side of it is where a lot of the issues come? But that's going to be the next thing. But right now we're leaning towards Ebony. Come on, Ebony.
Hi, good afternoon or good evening, everyone. To your first question, do you think if you're in an interracial relationship, you can be truly accepted by the parents or the family? I think it boils down to three things, very similar to what I think Katrina had started to talk about. It boils down to exposure. How well has that family member or people or parents been exposed to a different culture? And it boils down to their experience, because they could have been exposed, but if the experience was good, that helps. If the experience was not, that's definitely going to be a blocker. And then last but not least, what's their belief system, right? Because I find that Christian families, regardless of culture, have a bit more acceptance in them just based on their belief system and their belief in God. But to me, it boils down to determining when you're dating, sort of determining all that before you take it to the next level. Because in my culture, we're marrying the family, right? We're not just marrying each other. So we place a higher priority on families connecting and blessing the marriage. In terms of their second question, do I think that the problems that interracial couples face, if they're due to the judgment of others, I think that it's not the majority of issues that they face, but it is, a primary factor. And so I think it's important that both people be strong within themselves and what they want to withstand that judgment. And I think, depending on where their faith is, their faith has to be strong, because it can present challenges that, you have to work through. And that's why I also think in any relationship, we need to think about those things before taking it to a deeper level of relationship into marriage. So those are my 2 cents, Jay.
Yeah, love it. Thank you. Thank you. Come on, Tarla, talk to us.
I agree wholeheartedly with everything Ebony said. She said a lot of things I was thinking in my head. Yes, I think there's internal pressures from family and external from society that, maybe more so where you live or the community that you live in, you may have a lot of external factors. And I definitely agree that both parties have to understand what those are and be committed and be able to be strong enough to, to withstand that, because it can be hard. It can really be really hard. I actually dated had interracial relationships earlier in my, my years, because of how my father viewed them. I did not date outside my race until my father passed away, because I knew his experience. And as Ebony was saying, it depends on their exposure. My dad had a very negative experience with other races. So that explains why he felt the way that he did. But of course, I understood that, but I did not let that change me of deciding who I wanted to be with or who I wanted to, have a relationship with. My mother, of course, open and understanding. But with the guys I dated, it was split. One guy's family accepted, the other guy's family did not. So it's really just depending on, people's individual families. It can be some families are more accepting than others. Even the split within the family, one part of the family accepts, other part of the family doesn't. It just really just depends. I think it's really just more dynamic. And also the people that in your family, when they grew up, things they experienced have a lot to play with, a lot, to deal with, with their opinions of how they want to view everything.
Love it, love it. So do you all think that an interracial relationship is worth it? With all that extra stress, with all that extra problems that you're going to have to face, and let's say relationships are hard enough as it is. Come on now, it's hard for Black people to stay with Black people, white people to stay with white people, Latino people to stay with Latino people. And now we're adding extra pressure. So y'all be real now, because come on, because people watch this, they're learning, we're going to blur you out, ain't nobody going to see you talk. So do you think it's worth it? So Kristen, do you think it's worth it?
I think it is worth it when you're with the right person who has an understanding. Like the young ladies mentioned, like you may have some that are accepting in the family and some that are not. The majority of my sister-in-law's family is accepting, as those few little specks that are not. But when you're with the right person, my brother and her came into the relationship knowing what they'll be against because they're an interracial couple. She is blonde hair, blue eyes. There's no denying that she's white. So there's that or whatever. And of course, they knew bringing children to the fact that they would be brought up biracial. But the thing I love about my sister-in-law, she is cultured. She knows about Juneteenth. My brother, the kids know about Juneteenth. They know about MLK. My brother takes her to see movies about slaves. Like, she knows everything and she's not opposed to that. That's what I think makes such a difference, because when you have clashing of cultures, it's important that you're able to bring them together. And that's what I love about her. She's in it. We can have all kind of conversations around her and she does not get offended. We don't get offended. There is that understanding and that respect within both sides of the family. So I think when you're with the right person, it's going to work. You may have face different, of course, judgment, because again, we still have that going on in this day and time. But when you're with the right person, it works. They're coming up on 10 years this summer and they're still as happy as they were when they first met. So.
Okay, well, that's what's up. So Chuck, you had something you wanted to say? You want to talk about it, or you want to be?
No, I think Kristen hit it. I think it's worth it if it's worth it to you. Like, the person is, the foundation is something genuine. I think if you're in it because, a lot of people date because of a lot of different reasons. Some, I know some folks who got tied up because the person they're dating wanted to upset their father, or you got to make sure that the reasons you're both there are genuine. And if it's worth it to you, then, and you go into it with your eyes open, then, you'll be ready for whatever, You got to be built for it, basically. The pressure of anything.
Okay. Well, let me put this to you all. And I know we had talked about this a long time ago, but I love to see how people see it. There is this assumption, especially in certain cultures, that there just aren't that many good men and or women. And so because of that, they believe that they need to look outside of their race or culture to find those people. In my estimation, almost every type of person exists in almost every race and or culture. Therefore, do you think that there are certain stereotypes within each race and or culture that hurts and or stops people from finding their perfect match in their own culture, so they leave it in order to find it elsewhere? And if y'all need me to give you an example of that, I will. Like, for instance, you have blurs, like that's a new word now for Black nerd. because a lot of Black people who are nerdy, who tend to be a little bit more intellectual, are not really represented well in Black culture. And so a lot of women grow up thinking, oh, all Black men are going to cheat on you. All of them got their pants hanging. All of them are tatted. All of them are listening to hip hop. And I know for me, most of my friends don't do any of that. In fact, most of my friends are married, happily married, don't want to get a divorce, never cheated on their wives. So do we have a situation where, and I know my ex-wife, she said she always thought she was going to marry a white guy because she never thought she was going to find a more intellectual Black guy. So do you think that these cultural norms are actually pushing people away when there could be somebody in your own race that matches you? I know that's a little weighty, but we got to go weighty because that's what we're here for. Come on, Ebony. Ebony likes to talk. That's what I'm talking
No,
about.
I'm gonna make this quick. If there's anyone else who hasn't spoken before, just shut me up. But I'm gonna make this quick. I don't think that it's the stereotypes. I think it's the experiences that we've been having within our own culture that dictate the need to start to look outside of that. And I don't know if it's true for everyone else, but that's just my perspective, that sure, there's stereotypes, but when we're seeing those stereotypes actually pan out through our own relationships or through observing the relationships of others who are close to us, then I think we're more prone to be open to going outside. That's it. Short and sweet.
Okay. Before I go to you, Chuck, I think Kenneth got something to say. You have something to say, Kenneth, because you had touched that unmute button earlier. And I kind of know how you roll, man. I know you about to go in deep.
An example that popped up in my head was the passport bros, the ones that are going out of country because they don't want to deal with the Americanized woman, and I don't know if that's a race issue at all. It probably is, because you meet the bros that think that the sisters are too hard, too manly, they care more about their degrees than anything and all that. And that seems to be a little bit more cultural nowadays. And it's leading those particular guys like out the country. So when you said that brought up, I think that's a good example of what we're dealing with nowadays. I'm done speaking.
Okay. Chuck, you want to pick it up from there?
I was just going to touch on what you said about, I think the loudest part of a culture, I agree with you 100%. There's a lot of different variations, but there are some parts of our culture that can form an identity, a cultural brand, and that's usually the loudest and most, a vocal part of the culture. You're saying about sagging pants, about hip hop culture. I think that in a lot of ways is considered our brand here in the United States. And I also agree with you that there's a lot of different people. So it's possible to meet. You just got to open yourself to experiencing different people, not going into it with that mindset. I think the problem is that there's a large chunk of the culture that define what is the loudest part as the attractive part. Like I know there was a whole thing going on with Michael B. Jordan here recently, where people were calling him corny or whatever because he was the person that was straight-laced. He was the person that was, on his game. Even in high school, he had his headshot pictures, and it led him to a point of success. And then the person who had been one of his detractors in high school came to interview him, and she was like, hey, yeah, we knew each other back in the day, like they were, like she was getting ready to give him a hug, or like they were, close friends. But no, he brought it to her attention that no, you were one of the people who. So anyway, I think that's we got to look at how we brand ourselves, and and that sort of thing. That's all I have to say.
No, that's what's up. And I just wanted to say this. I'm about to go to you, Brian. But Ebony said, the same thing with Sierra's husband, which is Russell Wilson. He's a football player. And the big thing that happened with there, if you guys don't know, is Sierra really is from the part of the African-American culture, kind of like what Chuck is saying, more of the saggy pants part of the culture. And Russell Wilson is from a two-parent household, born and raised in the suburbs. And he don't act like them other dudes. And when he married Sierra, all of the guys that was hanging out with Sierra, which was mainly hip hop guys, were trying to make fun of Sierra, saying this dude lame. He ain't gonna be able to do you like we do you, and all this other kind of crap. And they had podcasts and everything was talking about it. But Sierra has been jumping around like, I got a man that ain't cheating on me. I got a man helping me take care of my kids. I got a man that's making some money. I got a man that loves me, and I don't have to worry about him. So it's just something for you to think about. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, the first thing I thought about when the conversation started was, and real quick, getting back to Sierra, she was at the Oscars and basically naked. And I really would like to hear the women's reaction to that. But one of the things that I thought about too is the power of the media. The media is the biggest psychological force to me in the Black community, because if you notice, the sagging pants, the music, everything like that, where do you see it? You see it in the media first, and then it plays out in the communities. Hip hop used to be a positive force when it first started, but then it turned into gangster rap and all the negative stuff, men, the music calling women bees and hoes and all this kind of stuff. And I was listening to a rap just the other day. The guy was saying repeatedly over and over again, Miley Percocet, which are drugs. And then it said masks, no masks, talking about it had to be dealing with the pandemic. And then it went right back to Miley Percocet. So people don't realize it, but the media and the music, it's a psychological force in the community. So it's going to naturally enforce the negative stereotypes about racial relationships. Even now, that's despite the fact that just about every commercial or every other commercial or a lot of the TV shows now have interracial couples now, gay or straight. It's interracial. So I think the part that we don't really talk about much is the force and the power and the psychological mind control of the media that it has over everybody.
Dude, you hit it dead on the money. I'm glad you brought that up. You hit that dead on the money, because that's one of the main reasons why on a Christian platform, we're talking about Chris Rock, who cannot go 2 sentences without dropping a lot of curse words out of his mouth. Why? Because Chris Rock is on a platform. He's on a platform where on this Netflix video, he's probably going to reach 30 to 50 million people. And a lot of the people that he is reaching, even if they go to church, they're going to hear him and listen to his words and think that he's right because he's on that platform. That's one of the things that happens with social media. Most of the people, like if you talk about The View, The Talk, all these shows that come on in the middle of the day and are talking to women, look at who's on the panel. Like Whoopi Goldberg's on one of the panels, right? Whoopi Goldberg's an actress. But here she's talking about everything from politics to romance. She can't even get her own romantic life. Her whole romantic life been up and down her whole life, but she's on there talking about it. Why is she on there? Because she's famous. It doesn't mean she's learned in the information. It means she's famous. And a lot of times when pastors are even getting up and they're trying to talk to singles, they're speaking generally from their own perspective, but many of them have not researched anything about singles. of what it takes to be in a relationship. They might have read 1 or 2 books, but then that might be the extent. And that's why I wanted to take what Chris Rock is saying and make sure that we talk about it. Because let's be real, you know, when we're talking about interracial relationships, we're talking about 2 people going in and almost defying the odds. If we really want to be honest about it, interracial relationships have really never truly been accepted in this particular country since this country began. Okay, and then their children have a hard time as well, because are they Black? Are they white? Can they pull from both cultures? All right, and then and that's why I say we have to ask ourselves, and we have to be real with this and say, okay, if I talk to this person, am I willing to give of myself and fight this good fight for the rest of my life? You know, I'm gonna be real with y'all, because, you know, y'all, I mean, Kristen went in deep, you know, but I'm gonna be real, because like being single and I'm out here, and sometimes I'll talk to, like, I remember talking to this one lady that was Latina, and she was like, have you ever been with a Latina girl? And I was like, well, I've never been with one, you know, or dated one, but I was like, one of my best friends is Puerto Rican, and we've been friends for like, you know, 15 years, and I love her to life. And I was like, that's my extent of it. And so as me and her were talking, I could see, you know, a lot of potential problems. You know, you have the whole language issue. You know, just because she speaks fluent English doesn't mean the rest of her family does. So if I go over on Christmas, I could be literally sitting there watching soccer by myself and not understand what nobody around me is saying. So am I invested in learning the language? Then when it comes to the children, the language is a part of her culture. So what do I do when my children are running around speaking Spanish and then I don't understand what they're saying? So now they could be talking about me behind my back, and how am I going to deal with the insecurities that come from that? You know, so we got to be real when we're talking about this stuff, because it affects you. It's not just about loving the person, it affects your entire being, your entire life. I've seen so many videos on Instagram where you'll have a white lady and she married a Black person, and she's sitting there and she's like, oh my God, how do I do this girl's hair? Because her child is Black, and she's trying to figure out, okay, this hair don't work like my hair. Okay, so now I got to figure out how to do this. You know, and she's calling up every Black person she knows, and she's like, okay, what do I do? How do I handle this? You know, and I have another friend who, she's a very interesting person, but she married a Black guy. That was her second marriage, was with a Black guy. Her first was with a white guy. And she got to the point, and I kid you not, she got to a point where she almost hated white people because they treated her children so badly. And I told her, you know, and that's funny because I'm having this conversation with her and I'm holding her and I'm like, there are lots of good people, all races, all cultures in the world. Okay. But it was such a shock to her that people could treat another set of people just because of how they look. They could treat them this way. And she had never in her life paid attention. It wasn't that it didn't happen. She just never paid attention. And now because it was happening to her children, okay, she paid attention. So with that, is it truly worth the effort? And if it's not worth the effort, or even if it is, I'm gonna go back to Ebony and I'm going to mess with her a little bit, because she was talking about how hard it is to find a good man. So then she goes across the aisle. So my question again to the ladies and to the guys, why do you think it's so hard to find that good person? Why do you think it's so hard to find that personality that matches you in your own race to the point when you're going to a whole nother culture? Because one of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of times when people, and I'm not against interracial relationships or anything, I'm just spurring conversation. But I have noticed that some people, not all people, they go over looking for a certain personality that exists within their own culture, but then they're not willing to accept that personality within their own culture, even though that's the very thing that they're looking for. So come on, Ebony. You talk to any piece of.
Oh, wait. So I want to clarify. I'm not saying that I'm giving up on the culture or I want to go across the pond. As a matter of fact, I'm not interested in going across the pond. I like my own pool, if that makes sense. I'm just saying that it's just the experiences. I don't think it's hard to find a good man. I think it's hard to be discerning about the men and women that we meet to then decide whether or not to get into something with them. I think as a culture, we are so focused on relationships and potentially focused on, getting married that it's very difficult. Sometimes it's difficult for us to hear and remember God's word, what he's telling us to do, and the signs that he's giving us, the red flags. So I think it's more on us to learn how to develop that more, right? And in terms of who we choose, and know that it's okay. You're going to choose a couple of busters, you're going to meet a couple of busters and it's not going to work out, but not necessarily to give up. At least you're understanding along the journey what's going to work for you, what's not going to work for you, how you're testing your boundaries to make sure that someone's meeting them or not meeting them. So don't get me wrong, Jay, I'm all for finding a good man. And I'm just, at this point, I am just attracted to Black men. That's just my jam. Not putting down the non-Black men, but that's just where I am. And I will continue to search and search and search and search till I die, to find a good Black man. That's it.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not against interracial relationships. Like I said, if I found a perfect Latino, Indian, white, Asian woman and she was fun.
Never perfect.
You say what, Janetta?
Not perfect, of course, Jay.
Yeah, well, not perfect, but
but
what I'm talking
compatible.
about.
Yeah.
Yeah, compatible, fun, everything I'm looking for.
Equally yoked.
Yeah,
Yes.
then I'm down. I don't care about y'all. I'm down. You know what I'm saying? I don't have no problem saying I go either way. And Lee said she's with me. She said she's with me. Because I'm just gonna be real. I mean, one of the things that I've learned is I'm out here. I'm really only looking for about 3 or 4 things. And the first woman that I find with those 3 or 4 things, this guy looks like she got some home training. Because a lot of people act like they ain't got no home training now. They don't understand basic stuff. No, I'm dead serious. Don't understand basic stuff. Like people come over to your house and they'll do something like go into the bathroom and I don't know, just make some kind of mess. And it might be a mistake, but they won't tell you. They'll just leave and then won't tell you. And I'm not talking about like mess where the toilet didn't flush or something like that. It's like a mess that, oh, we could have avoided some issues if you had just told me. And there's people that do stuff like this. And you're just like, didn't your mama tell you better than this? Didn't she teach you better than this? So if I find a woman and she's got pretty much everything I'm looking for, she has good conversation, she's fun, I think she's attractive. Okay, it's gonna be winter right here, baby. She's gonna see the little glitter gonna come down from the sky and all the balloons because it's gonna be the winter. And I'm trying to tell y'all, boy, I'll marry quick because I'm a marriage material person. Okay, and that's something else we could talk about another day because there are guys who are marriage material and there are guys who are chilling material, and y'all ladies need to understand the difference between the two. But that's a whole nother story because Leslie got her hand up, and I want to hear from Leslie. Hey.
Good evening, everybody. So I think as I'm listening to everyone talk, to me, the issue is not necessarily Black, white, whatever. It's more about the amount of effort that people are willing to put into a relationship. And I think if it's an interracial relationship or, a May December romance or whatever the new, or even 2 Black people, 2 white people, same age from the same block, if you're unwilling to put in the effort into the relationship, it's doomed to fail. So in the scenario, Jay, that you talked about dating a Latina who spoke Spanish and you didn't, the relationship would be doomed if you chose to never learn Spanish, right? If you decide I'm going to be married to this woman, we're going to have children who will grow up and speak Spanish and I won't, then in some ways you've not put in the effort to help the relationship, to foster that relationship, because you go into it knowing that she has people in her family who speak Spanish. And I mean, as an example of, to me, every relationship is going to require work. And if you're not putting in work into it, it's never going to be successful. So again, it doesn't matter what the ethnicity or gender or age or whatever, it's the amount of effort that you put into a relationship. And what I'm discovering in my walk in this singleness is that, and I'm guilty of it too. You meet somebody, if they're not, what you want from the very beginning, you just walk away from it. I'm done. We're such a disposable society now that most people are unwilling to take more than a few minutes. And again, I've written off a lot of brothers probably for no real reason. So I'm guilty as charged, but I think overall we all just walk away without doing a little bit of hard work. And so that's what I wanted to say.
Well, I like that concept. I mean, everything you said was good. I like that concept of disposable society. That could be a whole talk right there. But I did say gender kind of matters a little bit, just a little bit for me. I'm like Chuck, she needed to have been born a woman. We can't have them, the flips. I gotta know, that everything was there from day one. That's why y'all gotta look at the pictures when they was babies. You always want to see the baby pictures. If they ain't got no baby pictures, they like, oh, well, my mama lost out of it. No, your mama got one baby picture. She got one baby picture. Okay, because these days, y'all talk about, man, you gotta do what you gotta do. You gotta make doggone sure that everything is on and popping. Now, come on, we want to hear from one other person before I go on. So Melinda's got her camera on. Does she want to talk to us?
Gigi's comment? Did you see Gigi's comment?
What's Gigi? If
In
you want
the
a
chat.
husband, you should look as well. Oh yeah, I'm with that too. But what you talking about, the one before that? I've not been really looking for a husband most of my adult life because I was taught man was supposed to find a wife. That's again a whole nother concept, but I could talk to that all night. We talked about that in CSC multiple times, but I love that convo. That is a good conversation right there. But before we leave, because we are about to leave interracial, okay, I see Tara Ann has her hand up. Anybody else? Now is your time to talk, because our Tara Ann is going to end it for us. So come on, Tara Ann.
Hello, good evening, everyone. I am excited because I actually get to be on a Thursday night, which has not happened often at all. And this is kind of a sensitive topic for me. Is Lori here? Yes. Yeah. Okay, so Lori might be able to understand where I'm coming from with some of what I'm about to say. So I was raised in a community, in a society that was very much multi-ethnic. And it was very much okay for you to have, my best friend from elementary through high school happened to be a white girl. And being around East Indians and Asians and just the whole gamut. And it's okay for you to be friends as kids. But when you start to get into your adolescent years, your early 20s, and you're dating one another, it becomes more of an issue. And that is when you start to realize that the love and the camaraderie that was encouraged when you were children was quite a farce. Actually, it was not something that was genuine for a lot of people. And so there's this sense of, even if I am attracted to someone who is other, it is it's really not accepted, and you are truly signing up for an uphill battle, right? That being said, I am, even though that has been my experience, I am very much open to whatever the Lord decides to send me, because I think that, at least for me, that because character and what I'm looking for in terms of character is, I value that so much more. I'm looking to find that in whomever and in whatever package that looks like. And then there was a gentleman who was speaking earlier. I'm not sure who it was who mentioned the cultural aspect. I'm not sure if it was Brian or C. Jones, but one of the things that I have heard since living in this country, and actually no, since living in Georgia in particular, it is this sense that Black men, and I am not the one who is painting you all with a broad brush, so please do not kill the messenger. But there's a statement that I've heard that Black men will not, they would prefer immigrant women, whether they are Black, white, Indian, whatever the case is, they will prefer immigrant women above Black American women, simply because they see them as being less combative or argumentative and more submissive, right? So I don't know if there's any truth to that or not. I have not looked at the data. I cannot speak to that very specifically, but that is a narrative that I've heard on more than one occasion since living in the South in particular. But that was just my comment in response to the gentleman who made that statement. And just in general, I'm open. Lord Jesus, just send them.
Thank you, Sarah Ann. Brian got his hand up. You done stirred the pot. So Brian got his hand up now. Come on, Brian.
Stirred the brothers up. My question, Tara, and any woman can answer this question. Where did you hear that narrative? That all Black men, or a great number of Black men, are buying passports and going to the Philippines and to DR and all these places. I just want to ask you seriously, Tara, where did you hear that?
Okay, so now, those were not the statements that I made. I didn't say anything about flying off to, Malaysia or anything like that. The statement that was made was that they prefer immigrant women. Now, whether you find the immigrant women who have come over here to the US, or you go and pick them up and bring them back, that part is less of the issue. And where did I hear it? I hear it primarily on social media.
There you go. That's
but
all right there.
But I've also been in spaces physically with Black men who have made statements like that. I have been told that I am preferable just because I'm an immigrant woman, which kind of is a little disconcerting for me. So
I'll just say this, and I've said this before. I know for all the new people that are new to CSC, because we talk about stuff, we try to talk about it open and honest. But to Tara Ann's point, about 50% of the women that I've dated have been foreign. Okay, they've either been from the islands or they've been from Africa. Okay, and even had one person that was almost here through the UK. And I have found that while I do find women in America that are of more of the quote unquote submissive type, I have also found a lot that aren't. And when I come forward and I actually say, this is what I'm going to take, this is what I'm going to do. And I'm very, people that's been around long enough and have heard me speak long enough, they know how I am. Okay. I'm a no nonsense, no BS dude. Okay. I try to be as friendly as I possibly can. But when I date, it's pretty much going to be 75%, you know, the way I kind of want to line it up. Now, I do talk to the women and I do try to find out what they want. And I try to be that person for them, giving them what they need. But it is no doubt who's in charge. It is no doubt who's wearing the pants. I am just that type. That is my personality. And I have found that a lot of women from overseas do flock toward me. So I don't know if it's me because they're just attracted to me, or if it is the fact that, you know, the whole Black in America thing. I personally believe that there's plenty of people everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Like I was saying earlier, I think that there's lots of Black women that are great. And like I said, I was married to an American Black woman right here in Alabama. She was born and raised in Alabama. So I don't have a problem with it, but I just wanted to make sure, to Tara Ann's point, that you don't really have to go overseas. And I've actually heard guys say that, you know, so that's why I do have to kind of at least, you know, give her some props on that. So come on, Leslie.
So I was just gonna say, you know, and I don't know if it's an urban legend about Black men only wanting foreign women. I mean, to me, it's the same urban legend of there are 7 men for every 1 woman, and so therefore the men have choice of all the women. And there's far too many single men for either one of those to be 100% true. And I just feel like if a gentleman comes to me, you know, says, well, I only want a foreign woman. Okay, that's fine. That's your preference. You know, I keep moving it. The same way if a guy says to me, well, you know, there's 7 men to every woman, then clearly I'm not one interested in that particular gentleman, and I just keep it moving. You know, we all have preferences, and if your preference is some other ethnicity, then hey, you know, go with God, and I hope it works.
No, I appreciate that. And like I say, I'm like that too. Like I say, I'm not trying to say that I'm preferring one or the other and that I only chase, or I got a passport, because I don't. I actually don't have a passport. I need to get my passport updated so I can actually do something to but yeah, I'm not a passport bro, anything like that. Like I said before, I will love whoever loves me, and I am down for it. I just have noticed that. So that was to the point that I was trying to make. Before we move on, I'm just trying to look through the notes and see if I see anything else that we could kind of hit on really quickly. But I think we're pretty good on it. But it's like I said, I think, you know, it's all good. Yes, I do believe that, Brian. I think the media does do a lot, but I also think that we as CSC are now the media. You know, we're putting ourselves out there on every single platform. Like I say, if you guys don't follow us on Instagram, please follow us on Instagram, follow us on YouTube, and we have a voice, and people are actually listening to our voice. This last year, CSC YouTube has ranked in well over 5,000 hours of people listening. So there are people out there that we have influence over, and that's why I want people to be as honest as they possibly can, because it's your experience, and your experience is your truth. There's nothing wrong with your experience. Okay, so